Welcome back. I'm Bobby Hartzog, Sales Strategy Business Development Manager at Smart Technologies. This is video 2 in a 2-part video series, The Magic is in the Details. The magic is Smart IQ. That's what we've been talking about. In video 1, we talked about that day 1 experience, the things that can happen right out of the box, where teachers can find success immediately with our panel without having to connect a computer or learn a whole lot. So that really low barrier to entry. We talked about things like the whiteboard, the browser. We used ink and gesturing and all of those things to engage students. Today we're going to talk about video conferencing, screen sharing, as well as bidirectional communication between students and teachers. First thing that I'm going to talk about is Zoom. We mentioned it a little bit in the last video, but now we're going to go into some more details. So I already have a Zoom meeting running. Remember that I have the Zoom app that is built in. It's in our Smart App Store. The apps library is here. And you can add it to your home screen. I've already got the video the Zoom meeting going for the purposes of this video. So I'm gonna go ahead and open that up. You can see that I am connected to my class and that this Zoom interface looks very familiar probably if you've used Zoom. I've got tools down at the bottom of the screen, the mute button, being able to see participants. The main point I wanna make is this share button. So when I click share, I've got different options of things to share. Specifically, we're going to share our screen. Now, what does that do? You'll notice on my laptop that my students can now see, or whoever's connected to my Zoom can now see what's going on my screen. So if I pick up my Magic Pen with its disappearing ink and I want to draw my students' attention to something, it will do that on my IQ screen as well as the laptop screen of anybody that's connected, and that ink will disappear. Why does that ink disappear? Well, because you just want to make some emphasis and draw your students' attention to something. You don't want it to be there permanently necessarily. So really cool that I can actually open my whiteboard. I can use my Magic Pen within the whiteboard. So if I've written something on the board and I want my students to really pay attention to that, again, I can draw their attention to it, say, look here, and make that temporary emphasis on what I want them to see. I can also add the pictures like I did in the last video. So if I want to add my ski picture back in, I can pull up the image search, one click, add the picture to the page, again, with my gesturing, resize or reposition this. Again, being able to draw attention using the Magic Pen, really, really cool function of the panel using Zoom. So I'm going to go back to my home screen again. If I want to go back in and change any of the settings in Zoom, it's in my recents column. It's also here in my favorites column. So I'm going to open Zoom back up. When I do that, I can stop sharing. I can mute myself. I can look at my list of participants, chat, that type of thing. You'll also notice in this video there is a webcam on the panel, and you can connect a webcam and use it too. So if I wanted to turn that webcam on so that my students could see, my connected students that are at home could see what's going on in the classroom, I could certainly connect that webcam or move it around so that they see the panel and what I'm actually doing on the screen rather than just seeing what's happening on the screen. So I can do a lot as far as connecting with Zoom on the panel. All right, so we talked about video conferencing. We used the Zoom app on the panel. Really cool application, great way to be able to connect with your students that are remote learners outside of the classroom. The next thing that we can do is we can do screen sharing. So there is a screen share button here on the screen. It's down at the bottom. One of the things that I want to share with you to give you some peace of mind when you think about screen sharing is somebody going to hijack my screen? Is a student going to decide in the middle of class, hey, I'm going to throw something up on the panel? The good news is we can answer that no. They cannot hijack your screen. The only time screen sharing works on the panel is when you have engaged screen sharing. So I'm going to go ahead and press the button here, and I'm going to pull out my phone. One of the things that's really great about this is there are directions on what to do. So from your device, connect to this network. So you're going to want the device that you want to screen share onto the panel to be on the same network as the panel. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to share your screen to this smartboard, and it has a name, and your smartboard will have a name. And then if you ever need help, we have tutorials. This is device agnostic, so that means Apple devices, Android devices, Windows devices, Chrome devices. All of those devices can connect using their native screen sharing application. So for example, my iPhone, I can use Apple AirPlay to share to the screen. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to unlock my phone, and I'm going to go to screen mirroring, and I'm going to select my panel. And what should happen is I should get a preview that comes up that says allow Bobby's phone to share its screen. And I can say yes or no. Another level of security, another piece that gives you some peace of mind, and know that a student can't hijack the session. So I'm going to say yes, I'd like to allow Bobby's phone to share. And then you'll see I've kind of got a live preview of what's going on. If I want to see it bigger, all I got to do is click on it. And now let's say we're talking about vacations, because we've been talking about that a lot lately. If we're talking about vacations and we want to talk about the weather on vacation, I can click on my weather app. I can talk to my students about the weather forecast, different things like that. So however you want to use that screen sharing app. Then when I am ready to look at another student's screen, I can just press the back button here. It's going to minimize my screen share, and I could have up to 4 students sharing their devices at the same time. So I could just jump back and forth between them. When I'm ready for a student to disconnect, maybe I have another student that I want to connect, I can press the disconnect button. The student can stop sharing from their device, or I can simply press the home button. When I press the home button, it disconnects everybody automatically. So even if I go back to screen sharing, even though I didn't disconnect from my phone, I wouldn't be connected anymore. That's a really great security feature as well. Peace of mind, don't have to worry about people taking over. So that's screen sharing on IQ. All right, so we've talked about video conferencing, we've talked about screen sharing. What we're really aiming for is keeping it simple, getting students engaged and connected with learning through the IQ system. So one more thing that I'd like to talk about with you is some bidirectional communication. So, I'm engaged with my students, I'm connected with my students in a very simple way. Remember when we talked about the whiteboard? I'm gonna go back to the whiteboard right now, and I added a graphic organizer to the page. So I'm gonna press this plus sign, and we talked through this. You could add a blank page, you could add a shout it out, you could add graphic organizers or manipulatives. We're gonna go back here to shout it out. Shout it out is an activity that requires student devices. So when it pops up, you can see, shout it out, start for class, student devices required. I love that we give all of these indicators so everybody knows what kind of field we're playing in, right? And so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to press start for class. But before I do that, up here in the upper left corner, you'll see there's a picture with 2 students. It's got a little bubble next to it. It's got 0 next to it. So I want my students to know how to connect. Again, we've put the instructions on screen. Students are going to go to hellosmart.com, and they're going to join this class. So I've got hellosmart.com open on my phone, and I'm going to go into this class 806-809. I'm going to put my name in the field, and I'm going to click join as guest. When I do, you'll see the students are showing up here. So I've got one student, James, that's connected, and then I've got myself. I'm also connected. On their screen right now, it says, how can I support you today? Your teacher isn't running an activity right now. So now I need to start it for the class. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start this for my class, and I'm going to ask my class, where did you go on vacation this year that you really loved? Most people didn't go on vacation this year, right? But we'll still play the game. We're going to answer the question. So I went to Florida. Okay, so I typed in an answer. I'm going to send in the response. Now I can pull up and see that James went to, I believe, the lake. You've never had a student answer like that before, right? Where you had to interpret what they wanted. But James went to the lake, and you can see that he's also come in and corrected his spelling. He went to the lake. Bobby went to Florida. So I can highlight these things. If for some reason one of your students decided to contribute an answer that maybe was not appropriate, I can drag that answer and drop it into the trash can up at the top. It's going to give me a warning. If I delete this, I cannot recover it. So am I sure that's what I want to do? I can click confirm. I can get rid of it. So really cool way to connect with student devices, to do some instant polling of the class, to ask questions and be able to connect in different ways than you've connected in the past. So remember, the thing that we really wanted to focus on at SMART is simple, engaging, and connected learning experiences. Hopefully you've seen that as we've talked through IQ. Remember, the magic is in the details. We've talked about whiteboarding. We've talked about using a browser. We've gone through video conferencing, screen sharing, bidirectional communication using Shout It Out. Lots of different ways to connect and engage with students in a very simple, easy to use way right out of the box without having to connect a computer to the screen. Stay tuned. We're going to talk a little bit more in detail about each of our panels, the 6000S and the MX panel as well, in some future videos. I hope you'll join me for those as well.